Hello and welcome to the athleticquickness.com Speed Training Challenge. I'm Dr. Larry Van Such. In this video, I'm going to share with you one of my favorite exercises that I use to teach athletes how to improve their running speed very quickly. The exercise in this video takes only 3 minutes a day to perform and is perhaps one of the most powerful exercises that you can do right now to help improve your speed. When done properly, the athletes I've personally coached will usually start to report back to me with improvements in their running speed when they do this exercise 3 times a week for just 2 weeks. That's only 6 total training sessions, each lasting just 3 minutes for a grand total of just 18 minutes of training. Now, I know that may sound hard to believe, but in just a few minutes, I'm going to challenge you to put this exercise to the test to see if what I'm telling you is true. Do you have 18 minutes to give this a try? If so, let's get started. I want to first give you a little background regarding this exercise so that instead of just running off and trying it and then perhaps moving on to something else, you hopefully get a better appreciation for how and why I feel so strongly about this exercise and how it can benefit you as well, because I have found that when people get to know and appreciate how something works, they are more likely to implement it into their routines and follow through with it on a more consistent basis. And that is the key to getting results with any program. So let me start by saying that I get interviewed a lot regarding the subject of speed training for athletes. And one of the biggest questions I get is, what area of one's training do I feel needs to be improved to help athletes get faster? And the short answer to that question that I always give is that I feel that there is an overemphasis of training on certain muscles of both the upper body and lower body, and very little attention to the more specific running muscles that not only connect these two areas together, but also helps to improve the length and quickness of your stride and turnover rate. And I'm not talking about simply training your core with abdominal exercises and things like that. So let me explain. What I mean by this is when I break down an athlete's workout, what I typically see is the same types of exercises being performed for the upper body, such as arm curls, shoulder presses, tricep pushdowns, bench presses, lat pull downs, and things like that. And in the lower body, it's usually things like squats, leg extensions, leg curls, and lunges. Now, all of these exercises are beneficial and should be done whenever possible. But the problem athletes will run into if they don't train other muscle groups to help what I call bridge these two areas together effectively, so that is to connect the upper body with the lower body and get them communicating and working together as one complete unit, they usually have a hard time seeing much improvement in their athletic performance. The analogy I like to use for athletes who may unwittingly find themselves in this situation is that of a steel door attached to a steel frame. And this is where the steel door represents your arms and upper body, where you have superior strength, and the steel frame represents your lower body and legs, where those two are also very well developed from all your past training. But what if I asked you if the steel door is connected to the steel frame with, say, paper door hinges? Will the entire unit be as strong as steel and as efficient as you think it should? Of course not. And the same logic applies to athletes who have really strong upper bodies and lower bodies, but perhaps underdeveloped muscles that bridge the two together. Do you think your athletic performance and running speed would be affected if you were in a situation like this? Of course you would. And so when athletes begin to realize that this might be a problem, the next question is, okay, so how do I go about fixing this, since I already mentioned that ab exercises won't do the trick? And this is where I feel that perhaps the most powerful muscle group in the body, the hip flexor muscles, which bridge or connect the upper body to the lower body and are involved in many important activities like running, jumping, and kicking, could use far more attention in one's training routine than perhaps what you might be previously doing. Now, if you don't already know what or where these muscles are and how they relate to your running speed, then this is what I'm going to show you next. Your hip flexor muscles are located deep within the midsection of your body, and there are 7 of them on both sides. As a group, they actually start up high in your lumbar spine, just below your last rib, and they cross your hip joint, and then they actually attach at their furthest point just below the knee. Their combined length is well over 2 feet long, and this makes them one of the most important muscle groups to an athlete's overall strength and conditioning. Yet, because they are hidden deep in the body, they are typically ignored and found to be extremely underdeveloped in most athletes. This is great news if this applies to you, since if this is the case, then you have a huge reservoir of untapped muscular energy just waiting to be released. Now, as their name implies, their function is to flex the hip, or perhaps more specifically, to flex the thigh on the pelvis, as shown in this video. Watching the video, look at the amount of distance that is covered in this athlete's stride of his right leg. Do you think this is an important part of running? Of course it is. The length of the stride has got to be at least 10 feet. But if you can't get your leg out in front of you fast enough, you will always feel like you're stuck in second gear. And this movement involving your stride is all driven by the hip flexor muscles. And so the next question I have for you right now is, what are you doing right now to improve this phase of running? Most people who I ask this question to rarely come up with anything, and if they do, it's usually things like hanging leg lifts or sit-ups performed on a decline bench with a medicine ball being tossed to them as they go backwards. While these are good exercises, they don't put the amount of strain or type of strain on these muscles that I feel needs to be done to properly activate them for speed. Now, the way I recommend to really get at these muscles and to help make them work for you and improve your running speed is to use a resistance band with an isometric training strategy. And what this means is, instead of performing repetitions with the band like you would with weights and dumbbells, the band is stretched to a certain point and then held at that position for 10 to 15 seconds, using between 70 to 80% of your maximum strength. This is a really effective technique to help build muscle strength and quickness in a very short period of time, and you can learn more about this strategy from our website, where I've broken it down in several articles for those of you who may be interested. But right now, I'm going to show you this dynamic hip flexor exercise that targets these muscles specifically. And again, when you do it properly, you too should start to see improvements in your running speed. And so that's my challenge for you, to see if this exercise works for you as well as it has for those I have personally trained.